missed him like that. How are you, sweetheart? Lovely to see you. Sorry, I couldn't resist. But I want to point out some more books as well. Thank you so much, and please sit down. Okay, and Michelle, and thank you everybody for, especially to the, I'm going to get it wrong, the Bodhicitta Transport Service. To Chris, who's been driving me around in incredible comfort and very nice company. So thank you to everybody. I'm sure, and Geshe, of course, it's great. So thanks for coming, and all of you and everybody else that I forgot. Thank you. So I have these little gifts for you if you'd like. This is because we're going to get experienced. We're going to, at some point, practice Tantra, everyone in this room. Don't worry if you're not yet, it's okay. But this is a little Vajrasattva card for you. This happens to be a Vajrasattva with consort, but you don't have to visualize with the consort. It has the short mantra on the back with a little explanation. Most of you, I think, are familiar with the little yellow pocket booklet from the Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive. So do get yourself one of those, and please, if you want to practice Tantra, you need to start doing that practice now. So find out how you do it. It's a great purification practice. But if you just want a little fun friend to hang out with, this is your person. So you can pick those up in a little bit. Thank you. I brought this along because I'm now teaching a bit from the computer because I travel, so I'm learning to, so I'm trying to orient myself that sometimes it's okay to have my notes there. I still had to bring some paper with me. Okay, so let's just sit comfortably and bring ourselves into the space. And first find that comfortable meditation posture. And as many of us may have had very busy days, let's just allow ourselves first to relax the body. So start at the very top of your head. Take a couple of minutes to scan down through your body, moving all the way down to move any tension out your feet and toes, or any area you're finding, and allow your normal natural breath to open up some space wherever you find you're a bit tight. And just bring yourself to as relaxed a place as possible. So how is the posture of your mind right now? And while you think of that, think about your purpose for being here tonight. And does your purpose include the idea of benefiting all other beings? If it does, great. So take a moment and set a positive intention right now, and if possible, directing your awareness that you might get some information this evening that may help propel you along a path to becoming a Buddha, a fully awakened being. And as a Buddha, you're completely unlimited in helping all other beings. See if you'd like to include that in your motivation. Take a moment to set a positive intention right now. And let's just bring our awareness to our breath, a normal, natural breath, following the air moving in your nostrils and out of the nostrils. So imagine right now that the entire external reality, the room we're sitting in, so not thinking about the people first off, but let's just think about the things in the room, the pillars and the tables and the floor, the ceiling. Imagine everything was in the nature of light. I know this isn't easy, try your best. And the nature of the light generated bliss in your mind. And the stupa and the streets. Everything is like a dance of light. all the beings, holy beings. And just move out as far as you can in your imagination. So everything you come in contact with in this world system generates bliss in your mind. Generates bliss in your mind. You may come in contact with something distasteful or less than generous. But imagine it transforms instantly into something that generates bliss in your mind. Just play with that as long as you can. And just slowly bring your awareness back to yourself sitting here normally in the room right now. And relax and slowly open your eyes. How was that? So you know what I find interesting is we can do that, but somehow many days people come home and they have that available or they have the TV. So what do you prefer? Right? So this is practicing Tantra. It folds right into the sutra practice as well. So again, I've been talking this past week, the past few days, about getting clear on your priorities. And it's about making positive familiar patterns. So it's your choice, again. And I know that a lot of the rest of the world is doing it differently. I understand that. I'm in the world, too. I come from the world, so, but it's really about what would you like your mind to be familiar with. It can be a dance of light, everything transformed, war and poverty transformed, or we can get mired down in that kind of junk, seeing it as very solidly existing, unchangeable, and then it lends to the negative emotions that arise, right? So there's choices. So let's look a little bit more closely at Tantra. It's a juicy word. It's a loaded word in our culture. So we have some misconceptions about it. How many of you, I'm curious here, have highest yoga tantra initiation? Some people, okay. So I do want to apologize to some of you because I can't speak in detail because this class was designed for people that don't have, for everybody. But for people that don't, it's secret. So there's only certain things I can say. So I'm going to explain how you get into Tantra. So if you came here to hear about all the juicy details, I can't get into all of that. But what I want to say is we have these ideas, it has something to do with sex. So what I want to mention, I lived many years in California, and it really irked me when I would see these New Age workshops and there'd be a flyer for a tantric sex workshop. So they're really diametrically opposed. It's not like that. I can't put those two words together, actually. I understand why people think of it together, but it's incorrect. So what we're talking about, the word tantra is a Sanskrit word that means thread or continuity. Thread or continuity. Tan is stretch or expand. Stretch or expand. Tra, instrument. Tantra is an instrument to expand your view, expand your mind, your life, like that. And in seeing things in a different way than we're used to seeing them. Tantra. Continuum. Okay? And what we're, in a sense, able to do is to access the supramundane in the mundane. Access the supramundane in the mundane. Find something spectacular and extraordinary in just ordinary view and ordinary things, and that's what we're doing. So what happens first, there's 4 levels of Tantra, but what I first want to talk about is the 3 principles. Thank you. Number 3, anybody else? Realization of emptiness. Thank you. Okay? So if you, sorry? Yeah, sorry. Renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness. Renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness are the 3 principles of the path. If you didn't know what those were, and you weren't sure about the order of them, you're not ready for Tantra. Okay? But you can learn these things. It doesn't take so long. It just takes a little bit of effort. Renunciation, we know that word. Clear about that word. It's not about giving away all your money. It's an attitude. It's an attitude. I think John Landau, maybe Alex Person, they call it definite emergence. You're emerging from the suffering. Emerging from the suffering. It's a very powerful place to be. We mistake renunciation. We don't get it. Well, you need to be poor. No. It's basically, it starts with compassion for yourself. I think that's really where it starts, compassion for yourself, meaning you're going along in a while. We've all been there. Some of us are here now, and something seriously is not working in your life. You keep hitting a wall. You keep having horrible relationships. You keep having problems at work. You've got chronic depression. You have anxiety attack. I mean, something, and all of a sudden you hit a place and you say, enough. That's renunciation. I am sick of suffering. I can't do this anymore. I can't do it anymore in this way. That's really renunciation. And then and that starts renunciation. This like for yourself, you realize I am suffering this, and you can suffer in small ways. You can suffer in great ways. My own pattern, kind of going along. My life was okay before the Dharma. Okay? And then something in me, I was just telling the story, Tim was with me, so something in me was like, you know, I worked in politics, I had a great job, paid me lots of money, blah, blah, okay? And then something in me was like, this is it? You know, I get a better job, make more money, I get a bigger apartment, more clothes, maybe I get a car, and that's it. So something in here was like, my suffering, I wasn't going to be satisfied with that. You know? So finally, fortunately, something woke up, and I just went like, I don't want that. I want something else. So slowly, then on the path, certain things. I remember my last boyfriend, we got ordained together. My last boyfriend, he wanted to get ordained first. He was putting a lot of pressure on me. I thought, I can't get ordained because he's pressuring me. I need to get ordained because I want to get ordained, right? I don't want to, you know, but you got your couple karma working. But I wanted to have, okay, fair enough. So finally, for me, it came, you know, all of a sudden I wanted to get ordained too. Fortunately, we did it at the same time, on and on. But when he wanted to get ordained first, there was an ordination, I couldn't go to it, and I leave to go out and teach a class, coming back thinking he's going to be ordained. There goes my relationship. Okay, monks and nuns in our tradition, you're ordained, you're celibate, you don't have intimate relationship anymore. That was it. I was with him 4 years, and I thought, wow, end of my relationship like that. You know, so what am I going to do? So am I going to start over with somebody else? I remember thinking this. I was driving out on the road, thinking, he just said he's going to get ordained, there's an ordination. You know, 20 minutes to get to the class. I'm like, wow, I was very supportive of him, but I was still kind of emotional. What am I going to do, start over with somebody else? I was tired. I didn't want to. I remember thinking by the time I got through it, I was like, I can't do that. I can't do it anymore. So tired of it, you know. You know, you meet somebody new, and then you go through your history, you fall into obsession, and it's all glorious, and right? And then you have to, and then you go through your, I'm like this, and I have my family, and you know, and so boring, so tired. Really, I mean, I've been through it so many times. I did this. They meet your friends, and you get into a habit, and then you get routine, then you move in, then their feet smell, then you're, you know. I really was like, I don't think I can do that anymore. It takes up so much time too, doesn't it? I could practice, but no. Instead, okay. Renunciation. I had a little bit of renunciation. Okay, real renunciation. Then those are small levels. Bless you. Okay, but real renunciation is when you strive day and night to get out of samsara. When you strive day and night to get out of samsara, the cycle of birth, old age, sickness, and death, suffering, when you strive day and night, okay, and that's when you enter the path of accumulation, the first of the 5 paths to Buddhahood. Okay, path of accumulation. Anybody know these paths? Number 2? Path of preparation, path of seeing, path of habituation or meditation, and the path of no more learning. Okay, have you heard of these paths before to enlightenment? Okay, so I used to think the path of accumulation, I thought I was on it already. Accumulating merit, accumulating conditions to practice Tantra and get enlightened. And then I realized I didn't really have true renunciation. I wasn't striving day and night to get out of samsara. You know, there was other things. Okay, I remember I did this 7-month retreat after I was the director of Vajrapani, and I got to do like 7-month retreat there. It was great. They were very kind to offer that to me. And when I finished, the community wanted to meet with me, and we had dinner and how did it go? And so one guy said, "Did you have any insights? Anything you want to mention? You know?" And these were like some of my closest friends, and I thought about it for a while, and I said, yeah, I realize I'm not even on the path now, right? So that's real renunciation. Bodhicitta, emptiness, I think we're familiar with. And we had other classes about them. Bodhicitta, developing the good heart, the mind that wants to get enlightened to benefit all others. That's bodhicitta, enlightened attitude. That is your method, compassion. Okay, one wing of the bird. Okay. Then you have the view, emptiness, the wisdom realizing emptiness, understanding the nature of reality. The other wing of the bird, that's your view, the way and the view. Okay? So renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness. You need to have a really, and then everything that fits in with them are the three scopes of the Lam Rim. So you need a basic, really good view of the philosophy to have that foundation on which to build your tantric and put your tantric roof. Make sense? So you want to have a good foundation of the philosophy, okay? It doesn't mean you have to have a realization of the entire Lam Rim before taking a tantric initiation, but what's helpful in the path is to find a qualified guru, to find a qualified teacher. Guru is a spiritual teacher, spiritual guide. In Tibetan, Lama, one who is heavy with realizations. Okay? So in the Lam Rim, you can read the specifics of what makes a qualified teacher. There's 10 different things. If you can't find all 10 in these people or anyone who's around you, go to different centers. Then it says you can find 5, or at least the minimum of 3 things. Qualities such as they have the 3 higher trainings, which are, not to be confused with the 3 principles of the path. 3 higher trainings. Anybody? Ethics. Great. Pure morality. Well, she was studying at Kopan, okay? She knows her stuff. Ethics or good morality is the basis. And on that, because you have good ethics and morality, you can develop, somebody else? Concentration. Okay? You can develop shine, meditative stabilization, because my mind's pretty stable, because I have good conduct. If you don't have good conduct and you lie and you steal and you cheat, it comes up in meditation, a little, you know? Okay. And on that you put wisdom, because you need shine to develop, to have a direct perception of emptiness. So a teacher might have that. They might not have a direct perception of emptiness, but they might have a good understanding about emptiness. And then there's other qualities, like they love to teach, they know more than you do, they're never tired of answering questions, they have a somewhat subdued mind, like that, and you can read. Okay? So what's helpful, because having the teacher, is if they have greater realizations, they can best direct you into what tantric deity is for you. Okay, that's called your meditational deity. In Sanskrit, yidam. Yidam, Y-I-D-A-M. That's your meditational deity. That is a deity, an aspect of the enlightened mind that has, you have a closer propensity to practice and to get enlightened with that deity. You might have 1 or 2, generally. And they could tell you that. And then what you want to do is get a tantric initiation, get an initiation of that deity. And once you have that initiation, I'm going to talk about initiation in a minute. Once you have that initiation, you can then read all the commentaries on that deity's practice. Do the practice well, and you can do it in a first level approximation retreat. Approximation means you're trying to get closer to the deity. That's the point of taking tantric initiations and doing retreats. Doing those kind of retreats is to get closer to the deity. Why do I want to get closer to the deity? It's like getting closer to God. They're enlightened. They can help you. A source of incredible bliss and peace. So you want to become like them. But it's best not to try those exercises until you have until you've been given permission. Yeah. We all have certain things in life that you couldn't kind of go to 2nd grade until you finish 1st grade. It's like that. It's just like that. If you jump ahead and end up reading, and there are books in the library that will say it's for highest yoga, tantra initiates only. So don't jump ahead and read it, because it just confuses you and it creates obstacles on your path. You might say, what's the problem? I understand it, but it's just better to do things in the right order. It keeps your practice clean, clear. Okay? So the reason is, with a highly realized teacher, they best know what's best for you, and then what practices can clear obstacles for you to take certain initiations and things like that. What happens with tantric initiation is, let's say you get a meditational deity, and some of you know your meditational deity, and you go, how do I get this initiation? People ask me this a lot. And what you have to do is there's effort from your part. There takes effort. You know, a lot of us in our culture, it's a little bit, they sit there, and I remember many people at our centers, when I was running centers, and they'd say to me, you know, when's Lama Zopa coming? Like he would just, all he'd think about is like when I'm going to go to Vajrapani Institute. And, you know, no, we requested many times. We request teachers. The reason I come here is because people requested. Like that. So you have to create the cause also and the condition in your practice. So sometimes I wanted a certain initiation, and you can go online and look, and there's all kinds of centers everywhere. I've actually traveled to other countries to get initiation sometimes when I could, when I had the money to do it. One time somebody sponsored me. You know, so it's possible if you really have an intent to do something. And what you want to do is try to, at first, keep it in the same lineage that you're studying or practicing. It can be easier because they're slightly different in other lineages. The commitments might be different. The prerequisites might be different. But you do have to make some effort on your part. Find out, oh, this teacher's giving that. Well, who is that teacher? What do you know about them? Because once you take a highest yoga, tantra initiation with someone, you have a very serious connection with them, a guru-disciple relationship on that level. That's the highest level to have that relationship. It's a serious relationship. You don't want to get into trouble with them, meaning I don't want to disparage them in my mind or with my speech. I don't want to say negative things about them. I don't want to disregard their practice. I don't want to not keep the commitments that they gave me in the initiation. Because all of that just interferes with your path and can affect the long life of the Lama giving you the initiation. So that's why it's serious, and it's kind of like, get yourself together first, understand what you're doing, you know, buckle your seatbelt, and then launch. Okay? So let's go back a little bit. So why does Tantra get mixed up with sex is because you're working with the subtle body. You're working with the subtle body, and you're transforming, and you're using bliss in the path. Okay? So sexual energy is extremely strong. It's extremely strong. And what happens is we use it in a much more mundane way. Well, I have to say honestly, I ain't using it much anymore, okay? I'm celibate, but it doesn't mean monks and nuns that we're beyond desire. You know, I don't feel like I'm beyond desire, but, you know, certainly celibate. So what happens is, in the mundane way that we use it, when you have sex, when you make love, you know, it's incredibly blissful. There's no doubt, okay? So what you're doing is you're using the subtle energy system. There's a central channel, there's side channels, and some of this I can't speak a whole lot more about, but there's basically trying to move the winds into a certain configuration in the central channel is what you're doing in higher level practices, okay? And what that does is it generates incredible bliss. Sexual orgasm has the winds moving in a certain way, and they get close to doing that. That's why it's blissful. But they don't do it in the proper way. Can you imagine if you do it in the proper way? That's why sometimes I hear the lamas laughing, and I'm like, it's this like innocent childhood bliss. It's like so blissful, you hear it. You're like transported. Because they live in that space all the time. Okay? It's not necessary that they have a partner and all that, especially if they're monastic. Okay? But once they've actualized those higher states of realization, and an enlightened mind can stay in that all the time. That's the space they live from. Okay? So initially what what you want to do is, and let me explain the 4 levels of Tantra. Okay? We have action Tantra. In Sanskrit, Kriya Tantra is action Tantra. Second one is performance Tantra, or Charya Tantra. The third is Yoga Tantra. Yoga means union. The fourth is highest Yoga Tantra, supreme class of Tantra. or Anuttara Yoga Tantra. So in a sense, you'd say unexcelled union of continuity, in a sense. Okay, but let's look at what they're dealing with. They're all transforming bliss into the path. They're all working with bliss, but on different levels. The first level, Kriya Tantra, Action Tantra, deals much more in external means, okay? And so, as some of you have heard of Nungne practice. Nungne means abiding in the fast. Abiding in the fast, okay? I've led a lot of Nungnes, I love doing them. It's a 2.5-day intense purification retreat involving the Buddha of Compassion. Thousand-arm Chenresig, Buddha of Compassion. Beautiful, beautiful practice. Okay, you can get an initiation of the thousand-arm Chenresig. And it's very helpful to get it before you do a Nungne, but it's not absolutely necessary. It's also very helpful before Nungne if you take refuge, but it's not absolutely necessary, okay? But for working people in 2.5 days, which is basically your weekend or your 2 days off, you can actually do something really meaningful in those days. Does it take effort? Yes, because it's a lot of prostrations, fasting, and for about 36 hours you don't eat or drink anything. But it's all about cleaning out. So Kriya Tantra is with the external, it's very, very engaged with cleanliness, purification, like that. And you're bringing, in a sense, you're visualizing bringing bliss into the path. Like if you have a consort, by first looking at them. Like you're looking at a divine god or a divine goddess. And you first just, through seeing them. So it's that kind of first level Tantra. Okay? So Kriya Tantra also could be Kriya Tantra initiations, because we mostly are engaged with Kriya Tantra initiations and highest Yoga Tantra initiations. Most of the initiations I had don't deal with Charya Tantra and Yoga Tantra. So the first level Kriya, again, Medicine Buddha initiation could be Kriya Tantra. There are Taras that are like this of Kriya Tantra. Thousand-arm Chenresig could be Kriya Tantra. Some of them are also given at highest Yoga Tantra, but these would all be contained sometimes as Kriya Tantra initiations. Okay? With Kriya Tantra initiations, you do not have tantric vows. So you basically would be given sometimes refuge in the initiation, and sometimes they're more like blessings, but you definitely do things through a visualization. Okay, an initiation, if you haven't been in one, there'd be a teacher here. You would come. Usually Kriya Tantra would be a few hours. It's 1 day generally. Highest Yoga Tantra will go on for a 2nd day, sometimes a 3rd day. I don't mean all day, but it's a few hours a day. And it's all done through visualization. So the Lama would be performing things. They'd have some ritual items like this, and they tell you, now visualize this. Now visualize this. Like that. Now you're going to visualize this. No. And then some substances are passed around, and there's different things. Sometimes you're touched on the head with a crown, sometimes with a vase. It's all signs sometimes of purification or different levels of the Tantra you should visualize. And they tell you what to visualize when you have a good translator. No problem. Okay? So, and then at that level, you'd have a connection with that guru or teacher at that Kriya Tantra level. So we have teachers on different levels. You have a teacher in your own education that taught you the alphabet. But then you might have a teacher in high school that taught you physics. And then you have a teacher at university that might have taught you, mechanical engineering or something. So you've got them, they're going to be at different levels, and you can acknowledge them at different levels. So highest Yoga Tantra is really the PhD level. But it's also kind of on a spiritual level, a very, very deep connection with this person. And you want to keep your level of respect pure, your devotion to them. You may never see them again, the initiating Lama, but you always want to hold them in esteem in your mind. So before you jump to take an initiation, it's good to check out the teacher. A few things I would say, prerequisites. Check your motivation. Why do you want to get this initiation? Because everybody else is? Not a great motivation. There's people that I know collect initiations like credit cards, so they can say, well, I was there. I had the great Maha with His Holiness, you know? The reason you'd want to take an initiation is it creates a closer link between you and the deity in that practice. And again, so you do a retreat on the practice. Okay, it more empowers the retreat. Like I said, Nungne, you don't absolutely have to have 1,000-arm Chen Racing initiation. You visualize differently. I'll talk about that in a moment. You don't need to have that initiation. It's better if you do, based on the visualization, but it's okay if you don't. Some teachers are strict. You have to have it if you're doing a Nungne. Okay? So what you do, and then you'd have that initiation, so you'd want to, basically, so I could do a Nungne, so I could do more purification that would help me get enlightened to benefit others. Well, that's a great motivation. Okay, so you want to check your motivation, but you want to check up on the teacher. What are they like? Do you know anything about them? What kind of center are they associated? Are they associated with an organization? What are their students like? And if you're really looking for teachers, Holiness, the Dalai Lama even says, be a spy on your guru before you accept them as a teacher. Check them out. You know, look at what, do they walk the talk, and see how that works. So, and he even says take 6 years and check. Make sure, because it's a serious relationship, especially your root teacher, the one that really turns your mind and may give you most of your advice, practice advice like that. But you can have many teachers, but better to start slowly. Okay? So then you go through this process, this initiation, through the visualization, and then you basically have the initiation. Now, I will say honestly, because a lot of our visualizations are not good, a lot of our conduct is not pure. So I've been at some initiations, and there's been His Holiness giving an initiation with many high lamas, and one time His Holiness was giving it, I think there were 5,000 people there, and His Holiness said something like, there's really only about 25 people here that got it, right? So, but the thing is, it leaves imprints for us at our level. And the thing is, with highest yoga tantra initiations, you cannot do those retreats without having the initiation first. So Nungne is slightly different, and you can certainly recite some Tara mantras now. You can do Vajrasattva without the initiation. You can recite Manjushri mantras, the Buddha of Wisdom. You can do Medicine Buddha and things, but that's all okay to do. To get the initiation, to get a transmission of the mantra, which is a different level, okay, it empowers more and more the practice for you, okay? So the first thing would be somebody might give you a lung, and that's an oral transmission, a lung. And what it means is I could say to you, say Om Mani Padme Hum, and you'd repeat Om Mani Padme Hum. And we do that 3 times. And then you get the lung of Om Mani Padme Hum, because I got it from my teachers. Okay? So it empowers you a little bit when you say that mantra of the Buddha of compassion. It's a little stronger for your mind. Okay? So that's a different level than Tantra. That's just mantra. So mantra is mind protection. Means mind protection. Mantra is like a battering ram for the mind sometimes, like prayers. Sometimes we need that as a little bit more support for the mind. And mantras also have a power internally. So sometimes you don't have to be so concerned about what is the specific thing that they mean. They have an energy, resonates in the subtle energy system in the body. Okay. But to go back to Tantra, so I mentioned Nungne, Medicine Buddha, Tara, Manjushri, certain aspects of Chenrei Sig. They all have kind of lower tantric, many of them have lower tantric representations and things and expressions, and some of them have highest yoga tantra as well. Okay? So if you want to get your yidam, and it's a highest yoga tantra meditational deity or yidam, okay, and you find out what it is, you can't do the retreat or any other highest yoga tantra retreat until you have the proper initiation at that level. So what happens is, I just had 2 friends, we're in Singapore for Lama Zopa Rinpoche's long life puja. And they're 2 nuns, and they're really sweet and wonderful practitioners. And they went because Rinpoche had recommended to each of them a different initiation that was supposed to happen in Singapore. So they basically wanted to go to the Long Life Puja, but also they wanted to get these initiations. They were told years ago, take this, do this retreat. And she said, I can't do the retreat, I don't have the initiation. She goes, I'm going to go to Singapore, I want to get it. And I think they got it. So it was good. So highest yoga tantra initiations. Then what you'd like to do, what would be great, is, again, I mentioned, get into retreat. Before retreat, if you'd like, once you get the initiation, you can read commentaries on that practice. Okay? Then if you can, set aside time to do a retreat on the practice. In an approximation retreat, highest yoga tantra in general, you're reciting 100,000 of the deity's main mantra. And then you recite technically 10% more, just for mistakes. But it's through a practice, and you're gonna have what's called a sadhana. Okay, and that is a Sanskrit word for method of accomplishment. Method of accomplishment, meaning you're going to accomplish and become the deity, this deity, and be part of their world system and their entourage. That's what we're trying to do, to accomplish that incredibly blissful dance of light realm that we were meditating on in the beginning. So that's not a problem to meditate on that, okay? You're meditating as an ordinary being. That's okay. When you have a highest yoga tantra initiation, you start to practice, there's two stages, generation stage of tantra and completion stage. Generation stage is where you would then generate yourself as an aspect of the deity, whatever initiation you got through the practice, and that whole deity's world system, and it's very blissful, it can be very blissful, and however best you can visualize. Right? And then completion stage is where you're working with the subtle energy channels in the body to complete the path, basically. So let me go a little bit more into this. With highest yoga tantra, and well, let me finish the other three levels of tantra. So we have Kriya Tantra action. Then we have performance tantra. I mentioned this. Performance tantra takes bliss in a little bit, moving it through my partner, God, goddess, whatever, through generating the bliss by exchanging smiles with the other person. At that level, we're talking about a lighter level, exchanging smiles now. And this deals with where Kriya Tantra was mostly external, Charya Tantra is internal and external, using a little bit of starting to go internal, and using the internal winds and ideas and thoughts and what I want to say, visualization. Okay? The third level is Yoga Tantra. Yoga, again, is union. And this is a method of working with the partner, in a sense, through visualization of at a level of like holding hands, like that. So now you've touch, now you make touch. Highest Yoga Tantra uses sexual union, uses the bliss with sexual union, sexual embrace, and transforms that bliss into the spiritual path. So when you external into, okay, so what you're doing, and let me just go back for a minute, because Kriya Tantra is more external. Performance Tantra, the second level, Charya Tantra, I said, uses external, the cleanliness aspect as well, with internal, kind of working with your samadhi, your meditative absorption. Yoga Tantra, taking it a level, is you're working with kind of bliss and emptiness. And then highest Yoga Tantra, getting beyond duality with bliss and emptiness, sexual embrace, and then using the subtle energy system. So when you take a highest Yoga Tantra initiation, and you're doing this all on your own, this isn't necessarily with a partner. You're in a big room with people, everybody's just visualizing on their own. It's not like everybody's having sex in a room. It's not some kind of mass orgy, okay? So we're in there, and you're visualizing on your own, and then substances can be passed around. And once you complete that initiation, and you feel in your mind that you got it, whether you got it or not, but you, in a sense, I took it, you know, Then you may have some commitments. And so it's always very important before you take a tantric initiation to first check with the center. And I always used to say, what is the prerequisite to take this? There could be a prerequisite, number one. And the second part is there could be a commitment. With highest yoga tantra, there is almost always a daily commitment for the rest of this life. Prerequisite could be, and lamas have said, it comes from the lama, okay? And I, as a host of a center, when we were hosting a lama, I had to ask the lama through their attendant, are there any prerequisites? And they say everybody has to have refuge for this. They already have to have taken refuge. He's not going to do this with anyone that hasn't, okay? But often in the initiation, part of it is they give refuge. So if somebody wants to take refuge, I'll say there's 5 people that want to take refuge during the initiation, and then the Lama will stop at that point and have those people get up, make prostrations, and then they'll have a small refuge ceremony for them. And that's perfectly fine. Or you can have a separate refuge ceremony just to take refuge. And if you want, lay vows, like that. Generally, highest yoga tantra and most of the Kriya Tantra, you will have something called bodhisattva vows. Bodhisattva vows. Some of you have them. You're familiar with them. There are 18 root bodhisattva vows and 46 secondary bodhisattva vows. How many of you have bodhisattva vows? Okay. What is the first one? I got her. First bodhisattva vow? Okay. It's praising yourself and belittling others, okay? So what happens is we need to learn our vows. This is really important. This is what we miss. You know, I'm collecting initiations like credit cards. I want to be in there because he's going to be in there. No, that's not a reason to be in there, okay? And what happens is you come out, and I hear people all the time, oh, the commitment is to recite 7 mantras, some highest yoga tantra thing. No. The commitment is, or they'll go, the commitment is just to do the 6th session Guru Yoga, okay? So part of the 6th session Guru Yoga, all the vows are in there. You can recite them every day, right? But some people come out and they go, the commitment is 7 mantras. No, the commitment is all the bodhisattva vows and all the tantric vows. But we forget that step. They're boring, people say, right? It's designed. Tantric initiation is designed for you to have these vows on your continuum. The more vows you have, you ready for this? The freer you are. That's not something we're really in touch with. We think they restrain us. They're not fun. I grew up in a renegade generation. That rules were meant to be broken. So I didn't want to hear about vows. I'll take questions a little later. I didn't want to hear about vows. They restrained me. That meant I couldn't do something. I wanted to do everything. So I didn't like that. And then I remember I got ordained, and I went with 2 of my lay friends, 2 women, to a hot tub place in Santa Cruz. We would do that to relax. You go soak together, and so we rented a room, private, because I said I can't go out there in public, naked, with other people. We used to do that. It used to be really fun. I said, I can't do that. I'm a nun. I don't want to do that. And they're like, oh, so you can't do this now, and you can't do that? And they were saying to me, and then I realized, no, the vows free me. I'm actually a lot freer than probably most of you in many ways. I don't have to deal with my hair. I don't have to deal with buying clothes. Other than some undershirts once in a while, every couple of years, it's easy because you go to the Goodwill and you just go right over to the red section. So, so much easier. It is, it's so much easier though. It really is easy. I like it. Works for me. But many things, like people have parties. And I'm living in an area, they don't really know what nuns do right now. So people say, I don't have to go because I'm a nun. I don't have to make excuses, but I can go if I want, but I don't really have to go because I'm not a party girl anymore. I'm a nun. I like nuns' parties. I do. It's okay. But you know what I'm saying is, it frees me up from so much stuff. So much stuff. Okay? But you have to be happy in the vows. Ordination isn't for everybody. Okay? So, but if you're going to take bodhisattva vows and tantric vows, bodhisattva vows are okay. Easy, because you can learn them in advance. And they're great. They're all practical to get your mind into a better space, to be kinder. Who wouldn't want to take those vows? Okay, but don't rush, don't jump. Read the vows first. There's a wonderful booklet, FPMT, Bodhisattva vows. Read what the vows are, the 18 root vows. They're not that easy to break. Okay, 16 of the vows, you need 4 conditions to break them. It explains it in the book. 2 of the vows, one of them giving up bodhicitta, well, if you just have that thought, you break it. From the root, I mean. Okay, but who's going to give up bodhicitta? You don't want to help people? So they're practical. Praising yourself and belittling other. The first vow, first root vow is that one, but it's out of attachment. You know, I'm great. I'm attached to you thinking that I'm great, so I'm going to tell you how great I am. And then I'm going to put this guy down so that you know that I'm great. That's out of attachment. There's a branch vow, praising yourself, belittling others, out of anger. That you do it from anger. You want to get back at somebody. You want to spite somebody. They're different. So what happens is there's books you can learn. The details, it only benefits your mind. If you keep your vows well, you automatically get enlightened. They're designed for that. That's why they're there. They're all designed to get you to be a Buddha. So that's why you have to learn them. Tantric vows, I'm sorry, you can't get them in advance. That's the catch. So the reason you want the 3 principles of the path underneath you is at that point you already have some faith. So that would be one area where I'd say it's a leap of faith to take a tantric initiation and trust. Your guru's either nudged you into it and said it's time to take a tantric initiation. You're interested in something, you had a dream, you want that initiation, you want to do that kind of practice, and so you go for it, and then you have the tantric vows, like that. And there's 14 root vows, and some mother tantra commitments and things like that, and you learn them. And again, it's all designed, it's not about making your life a mess, it's making your life ultimately, infinitely blissful. Who wouldn't want that? But I know it's hard. You know, I can see people, I'm losing people back and they're like, I want to watch TV, right? Of course we do. It's easy TV. And you get involved with these characters, but also on TV, these characters have a lot of issues, don't they? It's a drama. What do I need to have their problems? We have enough of our own problems. I got to deal with, you know, somebody else's heartache, okay? So this is something to think about. So please do, if you have bodhisattva vows, it starts with refuge precepts. Know what they are. Know what they're, because it's all designed to get your mind going. So you come out of so first of all, the prerequisite, they'll say they need to have this. Now let me explain a couple highest yoga tantra deities. These are some deities. There's father tantra practices, and there's mother tantra practices. And then there's some that are called kind of non-dual, or they bridge both and things. So mother tantra practices are deities you may have heard of: Chakra Samvara, Vajrayogini, practices like that, okay? Father tantra practices, Guhya Samaja, or Guhya Samaya practices. Kala chakra, I believe, and I've heard it in different camps, if it's mother, it's father, it's non-dual. I'm not sure, I've always thought of it as kind of non-dual tantra. And it's just related to some other certain vows and the way you do the practice. The ways you do the practice a little bit, what their emphases are. That you'd understand more once you have an initiation. So here's another thing. Some of you have heard of Vajrayogini practice, yes? Yes or no? Okay. She's a power babe. Okay? It's nice, but men and women practice this. It doesn't have to just be women. Vajrayogini. You cannot just take a Vajrayogini initiation. You have to have had a highest yoga tantra initiation first. It's a slightly different aspect that it does, and it's part of the Chakra Samvara Tantra. So some lamas will request you have a Chakra Samvara initiation first before you take that. Tara is similar. Chittamani Tara is similar. It doesn't qualify as a highest yoga tantra initiation on its own. You often may need something first because of the way it's given. So that's okay, and then you could do that, and then often it's quite short. It's shorter than these full 2 or 3 day, all afternoon kind of initiations, like that. So when you come out of a highest Yoga Tantra initiation, well, the lower Tantra, for instance, Kriya Tantra, you might get a 1,000-arm Chenresig Kriya Tantra initiation. You might get a Medicine Buddha initiation at that level. Manjushri, Buddha of Infinite Wisdom, like that. It could be a blessing of Tara, like that. And what happens is those usually you come out and you have to recite a number of mantras. And it could be for the rest of your life. And one Lama explained it to me like this. We did a Manjushri blessing with him. This is the Buddha, again, of Infinite Wisdom. It was many years ago, I remember in San Jose. And one of my older Lamas who's still alive, because a lot of them have passed away. And I remember he said, and I want you to read this prayer, this praise to Manjushri, beautiful prayer. And he said, and in the prayer is the Manjushri mantra. And he said, so it's best if you do a mala of that mantra every day for the rest of your life. So some people groaned. And he said, well, it's like this. He said, if you want wisdom, then you do the mantra, the mala. If you don't want wisdom, then don't do it. All right? So it's just something to think about. Like we kind of go, oh, you know, but then I won't be able to watch TV, you know. I mean, I got my show on, you know. And please do not do mantras watching TV. They don't count. And Geshe Tsogo was one of the first lamas that I heard really come down like that. Geshe Tsogo is here. I remember him being very like, I'll take questions a little later about, you know. So this isn't about, you know, no. You're concentrating, trying to visualize a little bit. Make it count. It's quality. It's about quality. Great. So highest Yoga Tantra. So you check the prerequisites and they'll say, no, they need to have this initiation first, or they need refuge, or it's open to anybody. Anybody with a good intention that wants to take it. But be clear and tell them that they will be taking refuge precepts during this initiation, and they'll be taking bodhisattva and tantric vows. Okay, no problem. So when you come out of the highest Yoga Tantra initiation, you generally have a commitment of something called 6-session Guru Yoga. 6-session Guru Yoga. It's a sadhana. I'm sorry, I never say that word right. Sadhana or sadhana. I don't know how to say it. Okay, it's a Sanskrit word again. Method of accomplishment. You know, I'm going to accomplish this practice. I'm going to become a Buddha. Okay, and I need this practice to do it. All the sadhanas, generally, they're all set up the same way. All the tantric practices, nungne, they're basically refuge and bodhicitta. They start with your anchor. You know, I'm seeking support in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So, because I think that they're quality entities that are infallible sources of refuge, protection for my mind from more suffering, so I can traverse this path, get enlightened to benefit others. That's refuge and bodhicitta. Okay? And that really encompasses, actually, the entire Lam Rim is contained in those 4 verses. Okay? So, they all start with that. It'll set up, some of them will have a little brief area of renewing bodhisattva vows. Okay? And then they'll set up a visualization. And it sets up a visualization of a particular deity, system like that, and you just visualize as best as you can, but it's written in the practice. Some of them are very short practices. Some are very, very long. And on your own, when you're learning the practice, you can just read it. Read parts of it. If you're learning a new tantric practice, in the beginning it's very confusing. So break it down. Meaning, let's say you work full-time, you know? Maybe you have a 45-page sadhana. Okay? It's too overwhelming. So you just do 5 pages a night. You just read a little bit. You get familiar, and after a month, you've been through it a couple times. Now you kind of know what's coming. So when I do a retreat on a tantric deity, and if it's a new one to me, it's new, and I just did this one. It was, 60 pages, and a year and a half ago I wanted to do this practice, this retreat. So 60 pages. And the first, what I did is I read it through a few times before. I read it on the plane while I had a long plane ride, so I was familiarizing myself. I had some commentaries on it that explain, you know, what am I supposed to be visualizing here? What's supposed to be happening? What do I do when I do this mantra? How many mantras do I do? Some of them have different mantras you recite, different numbers of mantras, like Yamantaka. Okay? So it's good. And the other thing is you can do in a group as well. I did a group Yamantaka retreat once. It was very helpful because we had a Lama guide us through it. Okay? And what happens on these retreats is you're reciting certain mantras in Yamantaka, and they have different flavors, the tantric deities. Yamantaka is a big, fierce guy, okay? He's got a buffalo face and flaming blue horns, and you don't want to run into him in a dark alley by yourself, okay? He's a protector. He is the wrathful aspect of wisdom. So sometimes the beautiful, peaceful deities need a little bit bigger force like that, and he completely sweeps out negativities from your mind, blows out a lot of obstacles. So he's a great retreat to do early on in your practice, even sometimes before you do a Vajrasattva retreat. Totally blows out the obstacles. And it's also a shorter one. You could do it in 10 days or 2 weeks. Okay? But he's got a few different mantras to go through. And a lot of them have the syllable ya in it, and it's a wind syllable. So what happens is it makes you windy. Okay, but what I mean is it can make you lungy. And lung is a situation, it's a wind imbalance. It's very common on retreat, and it creates irritability, sleeplessness, you lose your appetite, you can get pain here, and you lose your sense of humor. Lung means wind, that's all. It's common. So it's helpful sometimes to have a little guide, or I've had people talk with me before they're going to do a retreat. Can you tell me what do I do? And I've gone over that with certain people, and I've been over it with other people that I wanted to learn from. What did you do in here in this part? What was I supposed to visualize? Before I did this retreat at Laudo a year and a half ago, I met with this geshe at Kopan, who was this big tantra geshe, and I said to him, and I'm like, okay, how many mantras of that do I recite? And what should I think about when I just wanted to clarify a few questions that I had, because there wasn't anybody at Laudo to ask questions to. So it was helpful. You know. And then what you don't know, you do your best if you're alone on retreat. If you're in a group, it's helpful. So we had this Lama who was helpful with him. And what he did is he also has to keep people on pace with the mantras. Some people recite really fast. Some recite really slowly. Okay? But you're in a group, so if you're on your own, I could make the session however long I wanted it, because I'm a bit slow reciter. But in a group, suddenly he's ending the session. And you're like, I didn't count very much. So these are just little hints to get if you do a group retreat. The main thing is, please relax. Don't freak out, okay? So, and it's funny what you go through in group retreats versus your own retreat. Your solo retreats are hard. So group retreat, we did this Yamantaka, Southern California, in a residential suburban neighborhood. It was bizarre, okay? And we were in the back of this large house, suburban house that had a couple living rooms, and they made a gompa in the back. And the delightful Chinese woman sitting in front of me, there are 25 Chinese housewives were on this retreat, and 5 Western people. And this woman was very behind in her mantras. So, and sorry, I'll get into some more things after I mention this. So at one point she started crying. And the geshe was saying, okay, is everybody on to the next mantra? And she's like, oh, Lord, She had to do remedial sessions on her own. But at one point she turned and I said, I'm not that far ahead of you. Like she was so funny. And I said, hey, sister, I'm not that far ahead of you. And I remember she turned finally to me and she's like turning and mouthing like, I love you. She just gives her, you want to support other people. So don't get into a thing, and we were hosting retreats, tantric retreats at Vajrapani, and what happens is sometimes we had 80 people once in a gompa that was for 50. So everybody's squeezed in together, and you have to set your seat in a tantric retreat. You do some things under your seat to make it kind of helpful for long life, and things that remove obstacles, and then that is your seat, and you don't move that seat until you finish the mantras. You've got to do a session every day on that seat and recite at least one mala with the long sadhana practice. At least one session a day of that until you do what's called a fire puja, a big fire puja, a fire ceremony that cleans any mistakes of the retreat. And once you finish that, then you've concluded the retreat, okay? I'll talk a little bit about why at the end are we doing these retreats. So we did this retreat and then and caught up. So when you're with people, some of the retreats we hosted, people squeezed in, the mind gets inflexible. The Western mind needs space. We like our space. We want to spread out, okay? Asians can sit like this, all on top of each other, no problem. They have different space requirement, okay? So I noticed in this retreat, people started complaining. You know, she's swishing her papers, the woman next to me. He breathes too heavily. You know, it's like, you know, so please get over yourselves. When, you know, Tantra is about getting over yourself. You're transforming everything into the path. It's supposed to be blissful. It can be blissful. But we're very tight sometimes, and we've got fixed notions and expectations. You have to let that go, in general, in your spiritual practice. And there's variations in Tibetan Buddhism. And I hear people explaining things, and then they say, well, you know, no, it's like this. Well, there's always variations. The Lamas are not very rigid. They have very flexible mind and highly realized beings. So the reason you want to finish at least 100,000 mantra approximation retreat, okay, and then you do some extra mantras, okay, and then you do the fire puja by keeping all the commitments of that daily long sadhana once a day, one mala, and then you have to offer something called tormas every day to complete this. They're offering cakes. Then you finish the fire puja. Has to be done in a certain way. It's not dorje kadro, preliminary practice. That's not the great fire puja you need to do, because I had a friend that made a mistake and had to do the retreat all over again. Okay? So that's another kind of burning offering. But once you've done the proper fire puja, you can then do self-initiation, something called self-initiation. And what that does is it's a ceremony you can do on your own, in a longer form, in an abbreviated form, and you renew all your vows. Okay? So that keeps you more cleaner, more quickly getting to enlightenment, self-initiation. There's even short ones you can do every day, daily. So again, 6-session Guru Yoga, a commitment you come out daily for the rest of your life with Highest Yoga Tantra, has all the Bodhisattva vows listed in it, in the long form. You could read them out loud every day, memorize them, right? Has the tantric vows, commitments like that. It's all in there, what you visualize, how, and you're at a point with Highest Yoga Tantra where you are then arising at some point in the sadhana as a deity. And you can visualize yourself in that divine aspect with something called divine pride with clear appearance. It's not something you should do until you've had Highest Yoga Tantra initiation. Okay, unless you've had the specific Nungne initiation of the 1,000-arm Chenresig, then in the practice of Nungne, you can visualize yourself as the 1,000-arm Chenresig. So only those kind of circumstances, you've gotten that particular transmission and permission, but Highest Yoga Tantra is quite serious, so you wouldn't ever visualize yourself as that particular deity until you've been given permission to do that via the initiation. And you'll say, well, what's really the problem? And it can just create obstacles in your practice. Obstacles with that teacher, obstacles to finding a teacher, things like that. That's what I've heard, like that. So the neat thing about 6-session Guru Yoga, okay, 6 sessions, divide 24 hours, which is one day, divide it in 2, 12 hours. Half the day, 12 hours, I'm going to say spent on sleeping and all your other activities. Now you might say, no, I spend more time. That's right, because you might sleep 7 or 8 hours a day, and you might work 8 hours a day. That's already 16 hours. You might commute to work. Okay, well now we're up to 17 hours. And then I've got my eating, sleeping, going to the bathroom, dressing myself, washing myself, all those other things. So you see how little time you really have to practice. So they're talking about people that are more in retreat mode. Okay, so you can at times get yourself into retreat mode where you're not working, you're on a holiday, and you set up maybe 4 sessions, which is more traditional, a day. But basically on retreat, let's say 12 hours is all that other stuff. Okay, sleeping takes up most of it, eating, other activities, reading, blah, blah, blah. Okay, then you've got 12 hours. What are you going to do in the 12 hours? 6 sessions. It means 6 sessions. If I divide 12 by 6, every 2 hours I'm checking my mind. How am I checking my mind? By checking my vows. So you do one recitation technically every couple of hours. It's not normally how people do the practice of 6-session Guru Yoga. What they do is you might do 3 in the morning, 3 recitations, and 3 in the evening, and that's okay. That's okay, but you want to do it with some feeling, with some visualization, going over the vows. There is a medium-length version of the 6-session. It's about a page long, and there's a longer version that has the vows in it. The medium level doesn't have all the vows listed. The longer version does. So it's nice if once or twice a week you go back over the vows to learn the vows. Or if you memorize it, if you say anything out loud, after a couple weeks you'll memorize it. If you say it in your head, you won't memorize as quickly. Okay? So it's all designed to getting you to learn your vows, and then through the vows you check your mind. How's my mind? Did I say something unkind to somebody? Did I do something unkind? Did I have a negative thought? Did I get angry? Am I very attached? Jealousy? And then you do purification practices. So Vajrasattva is always a good one to include, especially in the evening, to learn that practice and do that practice, because it can first of all help you find your guru, help you learn to do practice, help you get a certain initiation, find out what your meditational deity is, on and on. Just cleans up everything from the day. So very, very helpful. So it is really important. I can't stress about the vows enough, because people come out and they pay no attention to the vows. They don't even know what they are. And it's important. So, and the Bodhisattva vows are very practical things that lead you to develop a better heart and be more kind and more serving to other beings. Tantra vows are very different. Let's see what else I wanted to say. So what you're doing is generation stage, okay? You're generating, once you've had highest yoga tantra initiation, okay, now I got it on this deity, I got the deity's practice. I've got some commentaries, I'm reading these commentaries about it, what you do, what you think, how you visualize, and now I'm doing the practice and I'm getting it going every day. Especially if it's your meditational deity, you'd want to get it going every day. And eventually, if you're doing these practices out loud every day, and I know this might sound like a lot for people, it did for me at the beginning, but you start memorizing the practice. So what happens is that deity's practice that you feel very close with, especially if it's your yidam, starts kind of rolling out all day for you. You're never separate from it. You are that deity all day long, right? Everything you're seeing and experiencing is an aspect of that deity's world system. It's all just a dance of light, okay? But you go, but that's not what it looks like. We're generating, we're working on it. We're practicing, we're rehearsing it. That's what we do with all of our practice. So you have to, it's a process, you have to give it time. You have to give it time, okay? So first you work on the generation stage, generating yourself as a deity and working on the sadhana until you get very, very familiar with that. Okay? And then you may get an initiation. It could be Hey Vajra, or that could be your deity. And that is part of the 6 yogas of Naropa, is part of the Hey Vajra Tantra. But in some sense, what I'm saying is you might get some instruction on completion stage practice, like the 6 yogas of Naropa. And in particular, let's say Tumo practice. Tumo, T-U-M-O, inner heat. Inner fire is technically a completion stage practice, because you're working with the subtle energy network again, okay? So you need to get instruction, please, before you do it. It can be very dangerous if you don't. You can actually go crazy. You can also create heart problems and have all kinds of internal problems if you're not educated and instructed how to work with the winds and how to do it gently and not forcing and things like that. There's exercises that go along with it. Okay, so what you're then doing after you've got a good sense of the generation stage, and at our level we may not have had a realization of it. I may not be seeing myself all day as the deity in the deity's world system, in the deity's mandala, okay? But I might have the good fortune to get instruction on the completion stage. So then you might practice some completion stage tantra. You can do it on your own. You don't need a partner. Okay? I'm a nun. Monks and nuns can do this through visualization. And what you're doing is you're working with the subtle energy system and trying to open up clogged channels and knots and things like that. And because you want to get the winds working in the right way. For most of us, they're clogged and knotted and constricted. And the reason they are is due to delusion in our mind. Okay? So delusion, which I mean of ignorance, attachment, hostility, jealousy, fear, worry, anxiety, depression, that's just an imbalanced state of mind. Afflictive emotion is what I'll call it. That's all. Afflictive emotion. And what that does is it creates an imbalance in the subtle energy system. Because our subtle energy system is knotted and constricted, that's why we experience those mental states. That's why we want to work with the completion stage. But again, one layer, appropriately, and then building the next layer on, and then building the next layer on in an appropriate way. You can't force something, and you can't jump to the next layer till you're ready. But then you work with the subtle energy thing first through visualization and trying to open up those channels and knots in certain ways so that the winds can flow. And then with the winds flowing in the right way can actualize certain internal visions that will appear to you naturally. The same visions that will happen when you're actively dying, in the dying process. There are also internal visions that happen every time you fall asleep and every time you have sexual orgasm. Those visions appear. Do you recognize them now? If not, then it's because your mind's not familiar with them. So what we're trying to do is actualize to recognize those visions, such as the first vision as the earth element starts to dissolve when you're dying is the earth element's absorbing. These are the things that are constituents for the body, okay? And there appears a mirage-like image. It's not separate from you, it's your mind. And that will appear naturally for you when you're dying. Mirage-like image, water everywhere, looking out on a hot asphalt and waves like that. Mirage-like vision. Okay, and then as the water element dissolves, you have a vision of a smoke-filled room. That's your entire experience. Okay, the reason you want to recognize some of those visions, because your mind is moving to the clear light, its most subtle form, and you want to recognize the clear light, whether it's the clear light of death when you're dying, or you can actualize that mind state now as you're living. It doesn't cause your death. It's actually fantastic because you use that most subtle mind to meditate on emptiness, to actualize higher levels of realization. So that's why we're trying to bring the winds into the central channel, because then those visions appear spontaneously, manifest in the mind automatically. And then you end up working with the mind in its most subtle form. That's how we get enlightened. Okay, but the next thing is you need a partner to actually do it. So what you do is you got your 3 principles of the path, you got your generation, you got your initiation, keeping your vows well. You do your generation stage, sadhana. Now I'm doing completion stage, okay? Now I'm at a higher level of realization, okay? Usually that's when people would take, with permission from their guru, would take a partner. If you're a lay person, you can take a partner at any time you want, okay? And one thing for lay people, I'd say, if you want to make love and you want to have sex, no problem at all, right? But if you are a tantric practitioner and your partner's a tantric practitioner, you can a little bit play with that energy, okay? However, if you're not beyond desire, you're just playing with it. You're not really practicing Tantra. Tantra is beyond desire. So you have to be at a really high level. You and your partner are not engaged with, it's not about bumping and grinding, it's not about getting off, it's totally transforming that very, very strong energy of desire, and you're using it in this, with this subtle body. And that's how you get enlightened. Everybody clear? Is that helpful? So that's why it's often mistaken, and you see deities in union and you go, they're having sex. Our ordinary minds, that's what we see. But for higher level practice, it's really totally transforming any ordinary experience into the path so you can get enlightened. So that's why I just wanted you a little bit in the beginning to kind of take that experience a little bit. Well, you can use that any time. If like, you know, you're on the T, you're having a bad day at work and your boss is irritating you, he's an angel teaching you a lesson, right? I believe in the conspiracy theory. I don't know how many of you do. My conspiracy theory is everybody is trying to get me enlightened. Really, it's easier because people bump up against you and sometimes I get annoyed by people. But it's like, thank you, you know? Trying to show me my mind because they show me my mind, the people that irritate me. We need those people. Okay, so what if I could transform? What if you become friends with everybody like that? See, everything just a dance of angels and Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Okay, that's your sadhana. That's your sadhana. And I just remember, just speaking of sadhana, Geshe Zopa. Geshe Lungtrip Zopa was an amazing Lama who passed away, I think last summer or the summer before, in Wisconsin. One of Lama Zopa Rinpoche's teachers, one of my teachers. And people, somebody came to him and said, Geshe, I can't sleep, I have so much insomnia and I can't sleep. And he used to say, just start your sadhana. You know, like, as soon as you get down to practice, all of a sudden you're drowsy, right? You see people, you know, I thought it was brilliant. I love that. He was so funny sometimes, so funny. Well, immediately puts you right out, you know. It's funny, last night I couldn't sleep and I woke up and then I just started to do some practice and then I was like, you know, after an hour like lying, I was reading and then I was like, I go back to my practice, boom, you know, something, you know, you just add a little practice in. So, let's see what else I wanted to say. When you get a yiram, if a teacher, you meet a teacher, they give you your meditational deity, it's secret. You don't share that with other people, unless they also have highest yoga tantra initiation, or they're a teacher of yours, or that's different. You have Vajra brothers and sisters, we would call them, and those are people that are in the same initiation with you, particularly highest yoga tantra. And we'll talk about our Vajra brothers and sisters and like that. And those are people you could discuss the practice with, and you might say, well, I do this practice, what do you do? Oh, you do that. And then you can compare techniques, but you don't go out and announce it to everybody, you know, on this practice, especially if they hadn't had initiation, tantric initiation. It's your secret thing, but then you'll find a buddy and somebody that can help you. And do you do, you know, have you had that initiation? Oh, well, did you do the retreat? Yeah, and then you can kind of talk about them and get notes and things like that. That can be helpful. And so generally, if you wouldn't discuss, if you've gotten the highest yoga tantra initiation, done the retreat, you wouldn't discuss the details, and that's one of the commitments you have, is not to discuss and reveal the details to others that have not had it like that, because it is a secret practice, because it can be misunderstood and things like that, and needs proper initiation. I know there were some questions, so Sharon.
You already answered it, so.
Okay. That's why sometimes it's good to have questions at the end. Question.
I'm sorry. The reciting mantras that you said, that you mentioned before, right? With the malas, that can be, for example, I know that the perfect environment is in a peace and quiet environment, but can that be practiced during a walk in the morning? If you're making a walk, can be
and
that
what
practice.
kind of practice do you mean?
The mantras.
Saying
with
mantras?
the mala.
Well,
yes.
you can say mantras anytime. I think it's good on a walk sometimes. I do them going around the stupa here occasionally. But the main thing you want to do is, if you have a commitment to do certain mantras, some of those mantras might require a visualization. So if my mind's not really mindful in the visualization, it's very helpful for my speech and a little bit of my mind to do the mantra, but I might not count it towards my commitment. You know, if I can keep my mind focused on the commitment and really feel like I'm doing it, then I would count it. But if I'm not, it's really about keeping the mind focused in it.
But if there was a visualization connected with the mantra, you would presumably have been informed of that when you were given it as a commitment.
Yes, or you could, not necessarily, or you should find out what am I supposed to be visualizing when I do the mantra. And sometimes it's in the sadhana, and sometimes not, it's in the commentary. Often they're in the commentary of what do I visualize here, and a lot of them are similar, visualizing light going out, purifying sentient beings. The light comes back in to the heart, light going out to making offerings to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and the light coming back. The light's always coming back into the heart again to try to, that familiarity to bring the winds, to try to get the winds inside in the right place like that. So often, I found a lot of them are not in the sadhana, it's in the commentary that tells you what to visualize. But they're somewhat similar. And they might have slightly different visualization. Yeah. What's harder is when you get into, I don't think you'll have this as much with what you're doing, but this is for Tim, but for other people, there's some deity practices. Vajrayogini's a pretty easy one, shorter sadhana. Some of them have, what was I just visualizing? 64 deity thing. So you have to slowly in retreat build it up, or in your own practice. You want to slowly get familiar with that practice. Some of you, when you got trained to use a computer, to do types of engineering, to work in an office, you didn't know how to do everything on the first day. You had to get trained. So this is the same process. This is a little less familiar to us. So I remember reading the sadhana, and then each session I did 4 sessions a day at least. I had different deities, and I'd work on the ones on this page. I'm going to get those sorted again. And then that day, that's all I was working on, those 4 sessions. So you want to slowly build up. Don't get so overwhelmed of like, I can't do this. I'm not going to think about it. I'm done thinking about it. No, you just slowly build up the practice like that. And then it starts to come together. Yes?
How do we start to learn about Tumo and stuff? It's not something that is routinely exposed to, and I would imagine it would take years to develop. Where do we start?
Yes, it doesn't always take years to develop, but what I would do is through this center, you can request certain practices you might want when great lamas come through, because they're the ones that would be qualified to give you that initiation, to teach that, and especially to give you the initiation if you need initiation for it, they would give that. There's other people that can explain Tumo to you and the exercises and things. That's okay, but sometimes you need an initiation. So what I would do is, we've always done this with our centers, the centers I was running. I would try to ask people, what would you like? And people were like, I want to do Tara practice. We had a group at one center. We already had a group that was doing Vajrayogini self-initiation. So there were new people that would have, and this is kind of a cool thing, this is a great, easy self-initiation. Not easy, but it's something you can do in an evening. It's 3 to 5 hours. So even you could come after work and do it, and we were doing it on like 1 day a month. And we had a group that started. Well, other people saw the group and wanted to join the group. In order to do it, you needed to do the Vajrayogini retreat. So in order to do that, so we started to request, we want to have this initiation, then we want to have that, then we want to host the retreat. And over the course of a few years, suddenly we had a group of 30 to 50 people. And it was really cool, and then people were learning from each other how to do the practice, people were doing the retreats, then people learned how to lead the retreats, and this is very empowering, and it's possible for everybody in this room to do it. So through the, I'd say Sean and Marianne, the director and the program coordinator, should be on the pulse of what kinds of things do you want to ask. You might have a couple really big lamas coming this year. That's who I would ask for. Go through Geshe Tenli. Could we get this practice? How do I get this practice? And check with him. I'd really like to do this practice. It's something he could explain to you. If not, find out how in the next few years can I get that. If not, you can look around at other places. And also go online and check out maybe if you like FPMT centers, well, where on the East Coast other centers, there's some in California that host a lot of big lamas sometimes, and check out. And I've flown to some places because I wanted that initiation. And it's possible to do, and you can combine it with a summer holiday. So make a little plan, and you go that, and you do the thing, and then you go and experience, and then you have that, and then you could come back and find somebody local that could explain it, and go through it. Then you could get a little practice group going. So that people that want to do this, you know, we had a session here a few years ago where I went through the 6-session Guru Yoga practice with people that had taken highest Yoga Tantra initiation, and we went through it a few times and did the practice together and explained it. And people were like, wow, now I know what I'm doing. Because when I first got the practice too, I went to the center, and can you imagine in these days, I went to the center, and 3 nights I came after work, took a bus like hours away, went to this center to get these initiations that I wanted. There was no translation. I just sat there for hours with the Tibetan, you know, like, and a little bit somebody would say, now visualize this. And I'm like, I didn't know anything. It was this incredible Lama. He passed away, but he looked like wisdom to me. So I was like, okay, yeah, I didn't know, you know. And at the end, they gave me a booklet, and they're like, you need to do this every day for the rest of your life. I was like, what? You know? So, and then I had this 6 session. So I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know what I was doing. It's very common, but better now people can explain and you learn it properly and you don't mess up your commitments and you get going. But, you know, stuff happens and you do your best. Okay, so now it's nice because everything's translated. They have a translator that explains exactly what you visualize, and then make sure that you're there. Can you have the 6th session, can you explain it to me then? Can we go through it? Yes. And you get a Dharma buddy, and they'll go through it like that, and it's helpful. So I think really it does take a little effort from our side of saying, I want this thing, where is it happening? Look online, you can search, and you'll find all these centers that come up with somebody may be teaching it. Find out about the teacher, who are they, are they qualified, and you can try to slowly start to move yourself in that direction. Tim.
Read a book like Lama Yeshe's Bliss of Inner Fire or something like that, just to kind of whet your appetite for it. But
Absolutely. So here's the thing. If you haven't had a highest Yoga Tantra initiation, I highly recommend Introduction to Tantra, Lama Yeshe. That book is great. It just gives you this gush of what you need to think about and things like that. I would also highly recommend Module 13, Discovering Buddhism. I think it's Module 13, Introduction to Tantra, that course. Okay, John Landau, I think, is the teacher, gives you a great overview of the details, the 4 types of Tantra, what to think about, I'm kind of giving an abbreviated version of that because I just have 2 hours. That's a course. Brilliant to do that first. Get familiar with that. Read the Bodhisattva vows, because if you take a highest Yoga Tantra initiation, you're going to get Bodhisattva vows. What's that about? How do I feel about that? What is that? Do you not want to be a Bodhisattva, a Buddhist saint that just wants to get enlightened to benefit others? You know, it's kind of a given. Okay, but slowly, you want to understand what these vows are about. Can I keep them? Right? What happens if I break it? You can always renew vows. You can always purify. So slowly you do that, and then that would be a great pre-thing. Once you take a highest Yoga Tantra initiation, there's many more books that are accessible to you about Tantra, about practicing Tantra. It's best not to read them initially, but once you have the initiation, you can. So I think Jeffrey Hopkins, A Tantric Distinction, I forget if that's open if you haven't had the initiation, but that's a great one. And then Tim was mentioning the Bliss of Inner Fire. So there's a Bliss of Inner Fire, and there's other books like the Tantric Grounds and Path Purity, Senchab Rinpoche I just mentioned in the beginning. These are books, once you have the initiation, that really go into details of, and it's another support of what to visualize, how to think about it, and what to move through, and they're fantastic. Books like that. So I would highly recommend that. And I've used some of those books and found them great. They just a great reminder, and really takes you into the context if you don't have a teacher around you, but then you need initiation for that. Yes.
How do you go about taking refuge or taking your Bodhisattva vows? Because I've never done that, so I don't know the process.
So again, you could request. Geshe Tenli gives refuge. I give refuge, but better to take with Geshe Tenli. So you just find a teacher that gives refuge and request to them. When you usually see a teacher or request, just as a thing, if you want to get into good habits, is you might see if you can have an appointment with them. And if you have an appointment, ideally if they're Tibetan, you bring a kata. the offering scarf. You bring an envelope with a nice envelope with an offering, okay? An offering in good condition, okay? You don't crumble up your $1 bills and shove them in there. You have try to have a nice, okay, these are just little protocol things. And then you go in, make 3 prostrations, put your envelope to the side, whatever. You don't need to have an offering, but you could bring flowers, you could bring fruit or something. It's just kind of a little thing that you would do. And then make 3 prostrations if you'd like, and then you'd come over with the kata, put the offering envelope on the table, kata, and they'll put it, and then you can say, I'd really like to take refuge. Will you give me refuge? Is it possible? And you can ask people at the center, mainly Sean and Marianne, could that happen? Because often a refuge thing with Geshe-la, there might be a few people that would be involved, and you can get a refuge name. It's good if you want to take refuge to read first. The FEMT has a great book, The 3 Jewels of Refuge. And it'll tell you what the precepts are that you keep in refuge so that you know in advance what you're doing. And somebody could explain to you, but the book's pretty clear. And Bodhisattva vows, there's a Bodhisattva vow book, so you could first look over, is that something, and you could request a teacher. Usually a higher Lama would give Bodhisattva vows. I don't know if Geshe-la does, he might. And you could do like that, and then request, could they do it, or it's part of a lower level initiation, or something like that.
In the spring and in the fall.
Great. Great, so that would be nice if you could get in and find out when it's going to happen. You can create the cause for these things too, by kind of praying, calling from the heart, doing your practice well, studying to get a good foundation. That creates a cause. It's all about causes and conditions. So wanting to take tantric initiation, wanting to practice tumo, things like this, you do have to create the cause, meaning, you're doing some practice, that the center's attracting and requesting great teachers to be here, higher level teachers that can do it and things like that. And you can really start to create a pure realm here. We've done it at other centers, honestly. And partly when you do self-initiation regularly at a center, everybody's purifying all their vows, so it starts to create this pure energy at the center in a pure realm. And it starts, and we had this going in California for a while, and all these incredible teachers were just living there, staying with us for months on end, giving these incredible level teachings, and you could create that right here. It's possible. You got a good community, and yes.
Yes, I have a question. Actually, 3, but.
Yeah.
So, are you defining bliss as pure energy? That's one question. The second question is, you said that, I think you said, and you can correct me, that mantras release energy. So I'm thinking, are there different, are we talking frequencies? So do different mantras give off certain frequencies? And is there a relationship with the frequencies and opening the wind channels within the body? And is there also a relationship with time in terms of that having an effect on light? So I think my question is,
Wait, let me go to your first question.
Okay.
Okay, first question was, so bliss, when I mean bliss, I mean like, the feeling you get with sexual orgasm? Bliss. Like that. I mean, I would use it like that, but I would think the bliss we could have with Tantra would be phenomenally greater. Like that, but that kind of blissful feeling. So it's not just pure energy, but it's really nice energy. Super pleasant energy, like that. The second question is, what I mentioned, it wasn't exactly the wording you used, but mantras have a way of reverberating, I would say, in the subtle energy system. So they have a way they work with the more subtle body and stuff like that. And I think it can open up channels and knots and things like that and create some help with visualization. And it also keeps the mind a bit not just anchored in a sense, but in a good way. It's like pushing through something like that. So I think it has a kind of external mode and an internal mode like that. It also, when you're reciting mantras in general, it can keep the speech cleaner. And, you're ready to curse at somebody, money, pay me home, right? So you can actually use it like that. And they really say in your blissful pure realm, you could visualize ultimately with Tantra, is all the, everything you visualize are Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Dakas, Dakinis, these holy tantric beings, and the trees, when the wind blows, it's all mantra. Everything is mantra like that, resonating like that. Does that answer your question?
I don't know. I don't know.
What was your third question? Or does
Well,
that
my
answer your
third
second question?
My third question, I don't know even know if I understand it, but I'm thinking in terms of, because you talked about the dance of light and everything,
I just use that as an expression,
Right.
But
But I'm thinking of light, and when I think of light, and maybe I shouldn't even try to be analyzing here, but I am. I think of, light, transcendent time. So when I think of, opening channels and I think of frequencies, I kind of think like that. So I don't really know what my question is, but is there a relationship there?
I think to some degree, I would say that time is a construct as well, and it's also empty of inherent nature. So, like light, you could say. So, it's related, but I don't so much get involved in time when I'm doing the sadhanas generally. That time's kind of suspended in a sense. It can suspend. I answered your question? Okay. A little, that's how it is for me, I would say, basically. And if you're in the middle of a practice, you really do get beyond time. You're not in a time thing like that. And suddenly you're amazed how much time went by or how little or like that sometimes. Yeah. Yes. Where did you drive from?
Montpelier.
Did you?
Yeah.
Today?
Yeah.
God bless. I love this guy. He's in the classes in Montpelier. I'm so happy to see you.
Oh, we love you too.
Lovely to see you. I might be maybe coming up in May. Maybe late May, coming up here.
Yeah.
Going to do some retreat in Montpelier.
Okay.
And then I might teach in the area too.
Awesome. Venerable, you mentioned in terms of choosing a deity, ideally to have a guru. You also mentioned perhaps dreaming of a deity.
I think what I meant was sometimes somebody will have a dream and this deity, because they don't know what it is, a deity appears and they go, I want to have that initiation, or that suddenly I know a woman and she saw the flyer. So she didn't know, she's like, did I see the flyer first? And then it subliminally went in, but she really had this connection and wanted to take the initiation, and she did, and it was great. She does the practice. And
have a guru, but let's say a master, like His Holiness the Dalai Lama is doing occult chakra. You don't have any kind of dreaming about occult chakra, or nobody's told you occult chakra, and yet people, by thousands obviously, go to that initiation. Can the teacher, can you just be drawn to the teacher, and no matter what initiation they're doing, is right for you just because,
yes, sometimes, and certainly someone like His Holiness is pretty right, I think, for anybody.
Yeah.
But he might not be a teacher that you're going to be able to get much direct advice from because of who he is and how busy he is. So sometimes it's helpful to have another teacher that could better guide you more personally. But the Kala Chakra initiation, I just want to mention, I know we're soon out of time, is Kala Chakra initiation is a unique one in that you can show up and be at the entire initiation and take it as a blessing, which means you won't have any commitments, and you'll hear the whole thing. Sometimes they'll say, don't repeat the certain parts about, but I know many people, and it has that kind of quality. It's just something where thousands of people go to it like that, and it's a great blessing for your mind.
I don't want this to get confusing, but I know a lot of creative people who create in a large measure from the space of their subtle bliss and subtle awarenesses. And so I'm wondering, it's not the same thing as you've been describing to us tonight, but is it somehow related, or could it be? I mean, this kind of creativity and bliss that people experience, whether they're writers or musicians or painters or whatever it is they do.
Is it related to Tantra? Is it practicing Tantra?
No, I guess I don't think that it's practicing Tantra, but can you have kind of a raw propensity to be able to access your subtler awarenesses, senses, bliss, without having been taught to do it?
Absolutely. But the question is, do you have the right view of emptiness, and do you have the right motivation, bodhicitta? Because without that, it has no meaning. It can be useless and it can be dangerous, and or you can just create something from it that's okay, but it doesn't have any of that kind of grounding. Yeah. So maybe, yeah.
It might be a tool that you could just use more effectively. More. Okay.
And there's things related, like anyone who practices Kundalini yoga, you know, they have a tradition very related to that, and but I've never found quite the thing put together with emptiness and bodhicitta, so much like the Tibetan system that gives you the great motivation underneath, and then the view like that so clearly. Like that. So we are out of time, and I hope this has been somewhat helpful for people. Just to give, I mean, it's very brief. We just had a couple hours, but I hope at some point what I really encourage you is please feel free to take a Vajrasattva card. And some of you are new to me. If you want to, there are some videos on my website, amymiller.com, or you can take a card with the website on it. But I really hope you can find your way. Many of you already have a great practice. You can find your way to that practice and keep it going with a great continuity so that you can get to Tantra and get ready to, you know, either take refuge, bodhisattva vows, and then find your way to a highest yoga tantra initiation. Because even if you're not able to really do the retreat and practice it, but you had a good intent, good heart, it leaves imprints, very, very significant imprints in your mind. And if you're really looking at the tantric vows and feel like, okay, I really want to, you know, it's really going to leave some positive imprints in the mind like that for future practice. So I hope you can find the right teachers to lead you to those places. And I'd like to dedicate any merit at all that we may have created, any positive energy from this time, to helping you get there to that level of practice. It will only benefit your heart and mind. May it also help propel us along a path to full awakening so we can be of the most benefit to all other beings. I'd also like to dedicate any positive energy, any merit for peace on the planet immediately, for all the beings who have really been killed, injured from the explosions in Brussels, and all the other terrorist activity or just suffering and war on the planet. And for all the beings who need additional healing, may they receive it immediately and completely. And for the long lives of all of our holy teachers. Thank you very much. And tomorrow night is a medicine Buddha practice for the full moon. I'm going to be leading it. It takes really about an hour. We read it in English. It's if you're sick, if you know anybody who's sick, this is the thing to do. And it's very easy for you to learn from this thing. So I think it's at 7, and then my last class is Thursday night at 7 on dealing with difficult emotions, which is pretty helpful right now for, I think, all of us in general, to get us ready for Tantra. So thank you very, very much. Thank you so much for coming. Oh, thank you. That's okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you, my dear. Thank you so much. Thank you.
you very much. You're back there smiling away. Yeah. Did you guys get your cards? Come up, please, and take your, a little pocket Vajrasattva. Thank you. Thank you. So, you remember this one? We can, did Sharon leave? Or did she? I was gonna just catch you right after. Yeah. Hey, girl. Hey, you look gorgeous. Oh, thank you. Look at, it's a chocolate bunny. Yay. Thank you. Love it. Good. I hope you enjoy. How are you? Maybe we can talk. Yeah, maybe. You look great. You too. Love your hair. Thank you. You love my hair? Yeah.
Thank you so much for your teaching. I am. Thank you so
I hope everything's going well.
Great.
No, because you haven't been walking on the roads for a while. So.
I have actually.
Still, yeah.
Well,
not so much, right?
yeah.
I know they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's great to see you. I hope if I come up, if I can get up there in May, teach in southern Vermont, and maybe Montana to see it. They drove 6 hours